Hi, my name's Bill. I work for Dominion Technologies Group Incorporated. I'm going to show you today how to take apart and reassemble a 1453X-31945 AC adapter. Here's the toolkit for the AC rebuild. It has picks in it, and it has the lube and some of your screws and O-rings. I got my picks. I use a crescent wrench, a pair of needle nose, a screwdriver, and you'll need a set of Allen wrenches. I also have a small bottle of Loctite 242. I use my PST G-Man lube. I just put it in one of my container cups here. It's easier to get to this way. And as you can see, it's pretty small. Get a couple of fittings on it and stuff. First thing I do is I will take and loosen up the three number 1024 by 3-inch screws that hold this assembly together. I'll loosen that one there with my Allen wrench, and the other one right here, and then the third one right here. As I loosen them up, you can see there's a little bit of spring tension in there, and it's lifting itself up. You have a couple of springs holding them, a couple of spring tensions there to compress when you tighten it up, to put it back together. There, you can see where she just released. Now I'll pull it up, and I will get my screws over and set them down to the side. I will remove my 2-012 O-rings. There are 3 of them. And I will set them off to the side. Pull my actuator, my spring, and my locator off and set them to the side. Now I'll undo my fittings. I have some SMC fittings. These are KQ2S 0332s. And I'll take that one off. I will lift this one and this one. And I will lift this one. Set them off to the side here. Okay. And then I can take this and turn it over where I can lift this off, and there's my spring. Take this seal off of the actuator piston and set it off to the side here. And there's a seal, an O-ring right here. You have a glide ring and an O-ring inside for a moving part. Now this here is the sub-assembly I've had in my hand right here. I'm going to take off the where are you Okay, lock piston. The lock piston off of the body. And inside the body are some ball bearings. And you don't want to lose them. That's why I've got the rag here. You can see them right here. There's 6 of them. And this one in particular, it's got a 9/64 ball bearing in it. And that's what creates the lock on the Schrader valve connection for the port to fill the AC air conditioning on your cars. I have a U-cup seal that I pop off right there. And then you have 440 screws holding this assembly on. I'll get those off. Using the right Allen wrench. Right here. Break them loose. These are all pretty small parts. So you want to have a rag setting down so that they don't bounce all over the place. And then I can just lift the part up and pour the screws in my hand. Set them off right here on the rag next to the ball bearings. I'll then remove the seal that's inside here. This here is your main seal. It's a 2207 O-ring. Get it with your pick. Bring that one out. And then you should have a small ring right here. Now I'll set this off to the side. You notice I have a roll pin right here on the side there. That's for alignment. It only goes on one way. You can't. It'll only slide in right here where it aligns with the hole. Now I have my valves. Now I can move the valves with my finger, but they have a real strong spring inside of them. So what we do here is I'll use an Allen wrench and a screwdriver to disassemble. And I'll take the screwdriver in here and give it a slight turn to loosen the Allen nut. As you can see, it loosens because they're not super tight. They're not supposed to be cranked on. Now, once I get them loose, I should be able to unscrew them. Right up here at the top. Okay. Once they're loose, the Allen screw comes off right up here on the top. You can remove the Allen screws. And then you can take your seal retainers and they'll have a seal down at the bottom of them. And you can remove those. And as you can see, I'm keeping all the seals that are the same kind of together, just in case I have to reuse them. Once you do that, you can take the seal right here on the side and remove that one, getting under it and just pulling it. And you knock them out, your valve spool assemblies, and you can see them popping out with the springs out the bottom. There. That's good. Now that should be all the seals in that part. You can take your springs off, set them off to the side, and then you have your seals right down here on the piston assemblies, the valve spool assemblies, and I'll take those off. And then right here you have some backup rings. We used to use a full backup ring, but now we use a split ring. It's easier to assemble and disassemble. As you can see, you just pull the split ring off. With a pick, because it's got a split in it. And you can see the split. They're not broken, they're made that way. So it's good to save some of the stuff when you're taking it apart and rebuilding it, because when you're in a pinch and you reach into your kit and you've run out of something, you may be able to reuse one of these to get you through a pinch. Once I get these off, they come off pretty quick when you've done a few of them. And there you have it. We'll get started on rebuilding. I'll start off first by doing a bunch of sub-assembly seals First I'm going to put the seals on the valve spool assemblies. First off I do is I lubricate the O-rings, and this here is going to be an O-ring number 2007 C. We use the C series O-rings for the AC because it's the series that handles the cold from the Freon. Okay. As soon as I get it past the point, I get it into the middle. I just use my pick to stretch it out just a touch, and then use my finger and my pick to rotate it around, and then push it down with my thumbs to the groove. I've already got my split ring setting out here. The split ring is it's a number 8007S248. It'll be up here on your seal kit. I open the split and I push it in the groove and use my finger to close it. Just open the split, use your finger to close it, and what you do is you take two of those split backup rings and you make somewhat of an O-ring sandwich. Okay. Here. Now, once I get those, all there, I will start putting on some of the other O-rings. Now I will grab my 2114s C series O-rings. These three right here. I'll get a little bit of lube, lubricate those. My fingers and put them on right here. Just push them on with my thumbs. Is it good? Okay. And I just put them in there, get them all set. So now I'll set them off to the side. I'll pull this piece over here. And what I'll do is I take one of my Allen wrenches and I will go down inside the pocket here along the wall and just put a little bit of the G-Man lube on the wall where these O-ring assemblies and backup ring assemblies are going to slide inside of the body. Now I'll also take And I'll put a little bit of G-Man lube right here. And on the outside of this O-ring here, I'll kind of like fill it like as if you were like packing a bearing in a that needed to be packed with grease before you put it on maybe a wagon wheel or something. But you just pack it in there just a little bit so that there's still grease in there once the grease starts rubbing off of the O-ring itself. And I'll do that to all three of these and get them ready. Just like that. And just fill all the cracks with a little bit of the G-Man lube, and then wipe my hands off a little bit. And after I get all of this on and they're all lubricated and ready, I'll lay them off to the side here, and I'll put a little bit of Loctite 242, removable Loctite, and I'll put a little dab right here. On the threads at the end of the valve spool assembly. And then I'll take and drop my springs. These here are B6 springs, and they have like a zinc plate coating on them. And I'll drop them into the pocket. I'll get them ready. And I'll take my valve spool assemblies. Well, first, before I do that, I'm going to put a little lubricant along the wall where the main seal O-ring is going to set right in here. Now I'll push my valve spool assembly, and I'll give it a little push with my finger so that it holds it up in there. Do that with the other two. And then I'll set them down to the side here for a second. Now I'll take my 2009 C series O-ring and I'll lubricate it and put it right over the threaded part of the valve spool assembly. Lubricate them a little bit, get them up in there. Then I'll take my seal retainer with the groove end down and the counterboard end up. And I will set that on top of the O-ring and line the hole up with the threads on the valve spool assembly. Then I'll take my 440 Allen nuts, and you can see that there's a little capped end right here that just juts out a little bit. That's the side that's going to stay up. And I'll set that inside the seal retainer just like that. Now there's a little trick to tightening these. Okay, what I do is I take and I stick my finger on the corresponding valve spool, and I push it up, and then I can tighten this down on the thread until I feel the spinning. You got it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Once I feel it, I'll do the next one. And I'll try not to cross the threads while I'm doing it. It's got to be smooth when you tighten it up, as if you were tightening a small nut on there. Okay, and once I get that, then I'll hold it with my Allen wrench. And I'll give it a little turn to snug it in good. And I'll in turn do that on all the other two. Just like a screwdriver. There. Once I have that assembly set, I can start putting on my other O-rings. I will take and I will put a 2031C will go around in this groove right here. And I'll just push that down with my fingers after I lubricate it. And this here is the matching end that goes to seal that. And I will lubricate the inside where that's going to go, so that's all done. And I'll lubricate this piece, the arbor, where the seal is going to go in here, so I get a good seal. I'll clean it a little bit off the face. I don't need so much on the face of it. Then I'll take and put my 2024C O-ring. It matches up to this, but I'll put it on right here, right on the top. Once I get that on, I will then align my roll pin with the roll pin groove. And place it on. Then I'll take my 440 screws with 440 lock washers, and I'll place them in the counter bores. And commence to tightening them up. Now, I'm not going to tighten this up all the way. I got it just enough to where I can feel it snugging. I'll go to the opposite side. Then I'll start this one. So I'm trying to get an even seal of the O-ring that's under there. Now I'll go around and slowly tighten. And as I get it snugger, now they're all snug. I'll give a little, like almost like a quarter of a turn almost, just under it. Just to make sure that these here are tight. I'll look into the light and just kind of see it, make sure I got like no light through the crack there that I can see, so I know it's sealed. Okay, now I'll take a little bit of lube and I'll put it around here and a little bit more on this O-ring right here. Even put a little bit up in here. Then I'll get the main seal, which is a 2207. C, and now I'll put it in the, you can see the groove is down here at the bottom of this first step, right down there. So if you drop it in there and you take your Allen wrench, you can pretty much push it down to the bottom. And then push your fingertip in and it should slide right down in the groove. Now once you do that, you can lubricate the U-cup seal on the inside and the outside. And you can see where it's cupped right here and it's capped right here. You put the cup side down because where the roll pin was, that hole right there is going to be a lock-unlock air mechanism. Once you get that on, you can then take a little bit of lube around the ball bearing ports, put a little bit on the inside because the ball bearings are going to go in there. At the same time, you're feeling too if it's smooth. If it's not, you might want to hit it with a little bit of Scotch-Brite or a little bit of a file, and just make it a little bit smooth because you don't want that all catching in there. That's where the ball bearings are going to open and close to lock on the Schrader valves. And I'll put the ball bearings in. And the lubrication helps hold them in there so they don't fall out all over the place. Now that you got that in there, I don't grab any extra lube, but what's on my finger already, I will just put a little bit of a thin coating on here on my lock piston. But I will put a little bit up here where the ball bearings are going to ride on the lip of the lock piston to make it a little bit smoother. And then I'll slide that over, and as you can see it drop down on its own. Put my spring on, lubricate my housing so it slides up and down along the U-cup seal and the seal right there on the side. And I'll put this on here and see that it works. And I'll try to line up the screw holes with each other, and I'll turn it upside down, where I am now going to take my actuator and put the 2012 O-ring on the actuator piston, lubricate it like I was kind of like packing a bearing again. Here we go. So it has a little bit of extra lube on it. It gives a little bit extra life, longevity. And I'll set that down. I'll lubricate my 2012 O-rings and set them up here in their two O-ring grooves. And I will take my 2007 O-ring and I will set that loosely right on the top there and just leave it set there. Now I'm going to take a little bit of lubrication and lubricate the pocket for the actuator piston. And I will slide that in there. And I will lubricate the stem with what's left on my finger and the wall of the housing right here at the bottom, so that the O-rings that coincide with these holes will seal better. Now I'll take my spring, pop that in there, and my locator, put that on, let it slide down, and I'll put my glide ring, Trelleborg glide ring with a long number, R046OB006-T05 rod seal. Now subassembly is ready for that. Now I know this hole right here with the threads is an air hole for pushing the rod, the U-cup seal up and down. And I know it lines up with this groove here. So it's supposed to go down this way, which tells me that the way that the manifold is marked, that my refrigerant port is here, my vacuum port is here, and my oil port is right here. So in this particular adapter, we're not using the oil port, so I'm going to put the gland without an SMC fitting right here and line the portholes. Then I'm going to take the gland with one of the SMC fittings for the vacuum port, and I'm going to line it up, those portholes. I'm going to take this gland with an SMC fitting, and then I'm going to make sure that they're all in line. I'm going to put my last SMC fitting for lock and unlock and screw it in so that I can line this manifold up. And this SMC fitting off to the side here is going to line up with this groove. So I am going to take and put my 1024 by 3-inch screws and lock washers in there, and I'm going to take and line them up. Let me get that O-ring right there. Okay. Get them all lined up here. And you can see the SMC fittings are lining up with their ports, their corresponding ports. So I'm not going to crush any of them when I push down and line the screws up with their corresponding threaded holes in the housing, and tighten them down. I'll snug this one here so that it's holding everything down. Then I'll do the other two. And you can give them an extra quarter turn to make them tight, and that's how you assemble the 1453X-31945.